What's going on, guys? Kenny here from 619 Guitars and Gear, and today we are going to dive into and check out the Squier Paranormal Cabronita Telecaster. And what makes it awesome is the fact that it's a baritone. So as always, let's get into it. Alright, well, welcome back to another review video. If you're new here, I'd like to welcome you to the channel. As I'd mentioned in the intro, we have a Squier Paranormal Cabronita Baritone Telecaster. That's a mouthful. This is actually my first time owning a 6-string baritone. I've had an 8-string and a couple different 7-string baritones, but never a 6, which was the whole point of getting this. I've had it for almost 2 weeks now, and I've been playing it a lot. I didn't do an unboxing or unbagging video or anything because I literally walk out of the store holding it like this. So I figured I'd just play it a whole bunch and then do a review video. And that's why we're here today. So let's go ahead and jump right into the specs. Starting on the body, you have a solid poplar body. You have this 3-color sunburst, which is just your regular classic looking sunburst. I don't hate it, but I don't love it, I guess you can say. They do sell this in a solid black and then like a seafoam green. I do wish they had the seafoam green. I would have preferred that, but it is what it is. I got it for what it is and not the way it looks. For the neck, I should also mention it has a polyurethane gloss finish on the body and neck. And you guys know I don't love gloss necks. I don't hate them. The PRS review we just did, that had a gloss neck also, and compared to that, I have to say this one's really sticky. There is a few things we can do to it to make it a little bit more smoother, but I do prefer like a satin or a oil neck finish for sure. You have a bolt-on maple neck, 27-inch scale, which is awesome. You have an Indian laurel fretboard, which I guess kind of resembles rosewood in a way, maybe more with a little bit of a more brownish tint. You have 22 narrow, tall nickel frets, 9.5-inch radius, dual action truss rod, I believe, synthetic bone nut, regular pearloid dot inlays, regular white side dots. And then for the neck profile, they say it is a C shape. I have to say it compared to any other Squier tellies I played, it feels pretty similar. And then moving on to hardware, for the tuners, you have these vintage style tuners, which I have to say, for being on a baritone when you're putting thick strings on it and down tuning, they hold tuning pretty dang well, which I was surprised about that. You have this fixed string through design bridge with the vintage style saddles. No complaints there. The saddle adjusters aren't, cutting up my hands or anything right now. I have not touched the action or neck relief or anything on this. It is exactly how it came from the store. and I highly doubt that the shop did anything with it. So it's most likely how it came from the factory. Starting and then going to electronics, you have 1 volume, 1 tone, 3-way switch. Then you have Fender Alnico soap bar single coils, which they're kind of new to me. I've never owned a guitar with them in there. I've had P90s, which I do definitely prefer over these. I'm just not a big single coil guy when it comes to playing with high gain. Then you'll notice it doesn't have the typical like Telecaster pick guard. It has this little scratch plate, which honestly I think looks really, really good. But some basic specs, nothing too crazy. Let's go ahead and throw this thing on the bench and take some measurements. All right, so let's go check the neck relief. I have a 25.5 straight edge, which should work. We might just have to jump a fret down. This is a 27-inch scale. There we go. The neck's pretty straight. There's a little gap in there. Not too crazy. Let's probably see if I can get it a little straighter. I don't have any feeler gauges on me, but yeah, it's pretty straight, but there's definitely a tad bit of relief in there. All right, real quick, let's go ahead and measure the action, starting with millimeters. It looks a little high, but not too bad. So we're starting at 2 millimeters. 2 millimeters. The D string's jumping up to 2.25. Back down to 2. 1.75. And then back up to 2 millimeters. So a little all over the place, going with inches. 0.08, 0.08, 0.09, 0.08, 0.07-ish, and 0.08. So yeah, a little all over the place. I'll probably see if I can get it a little lower. Honestly, 2 millimeters isn't that horrible. Probably see if I can get it, between 1.5, 1.75. But other than that, it's really not that bad. And this comes with, I believe, 14 to 68 gauge strings on it. I'm going to throw some 72s just because they're a little bit thicker and I could go a little bit lower in tunings with it. But overall, 2 millimeters, not too shabby. All right, let's take some quick measurements, starting with the width of the fretboard. We're going to start at the nut, so the first fret. It looks like we're around 43 millimeters. Then we'll jump to the 22nd fret. And we're right at 56 millimeters. Now let's move on to neck thickness. We're going to do it at the 1st fret and the 12th fret, because pretty much after the 12th fret, it almost starts gradually kind of tapering into the neck heel. So we'll start at the 1st fret. Right around 23 millimeters. And at the 12th fret, move these strings here. Like 24 millimeters, so pretty much the same all the way through, which is pretty cool. And obviously we already said the radius is 9.5, but while we're here, why not go ahead and check it. Got the Music Nomad radius gauge. We'll go right to 9.5, and that is dead money 9.5. Awesome. Alright, so just checking this nut. I went ahead and took a pencil, just put a little bit of graphite pencil lead in the nut slots. They look cut well, and fretting it at the 3rd fret, it's laying right on the 1st fret, so that means it's cut to its right depth. So that is good. Yeah. Synthetic bone nut. Not exactly sure what they make it out of, but seems to be cut well and looks in good shape. So we got the electronics cavity cover off here, and you'll see we have 2 mini potentiometers. They are 500K, You have the three-way toggle switch. Soldering joints look decent. Could definitely use a zip tie to neaten some of these wires up. And one thing I'm noticing, which I'm sure you're noticing too, is there is no shielding paint. So I thought that was pretty weird, but not really surprising, honestly. And no shielding tape on the back of the cover or anything. All right, let's do a quick little sound demo. Today, we're just going to do high gain. There are a ton of videos out there on this guitar where they play mostly in clean. Some really good videos. So if you want to hear this thing, the clean tones, go watch one of them. But today, we're just going to do some high gain stuff, go through all the different pickup positions. I figured we'll just do a guitar only run through of the full demo mix you heard in the beginning of the video. And yeah, now I will say I am totally not used to these Fender Alnico soap bar single coils. I've played on P90s before, but these things just have kind of like a weird frequency range where around like 4 or 5K it's really boosted, I feel like, and yeah, I just can't unhear it. And yeah, I mean, they don't sound bad at all. They sound good, but it's just there is a weird frequency in there. I don't know if you guys will be able to hear it depending on what you're watching this video on, but it's definitely there. And I've done some tests where I've tried pulling it out and, you know, boosting it to find it. And it's definitely in the 4 or 5K range. But I probably will swap these pickups out maybe for a Fishman P90 if there's enough room in the cavity for a 9-volt. Or maybe like a DiMarzio Super Distortion P90. I know they make those. We'll see what's out there. But yeah, let's start at the bridge pickup. As always, we're using the Quad Cortex capture of a Fortin head with a TS9 that I found on the Neural Cloud. And then I just made a custom IR using the Miko 2 program from ML Sound Labs. And it sounds pretty decent. Alright, well, before we wrap this video on up, I figured we can talk about a few things. Now, we'll talk about my likes and dislikes, but let's start with QC overall. I haven't found anything on this guitar that's really to be concerned about. The finish is awesome. Fret ends feel great. Probably the best fret ends I've ever felt on a Squier. The frets feel great. They're not polished. They're a little gritty, but not too bad. I've definitely felt worse. These tuners, While you might think the vintage style tuners on a baritone, low tunings might not be the best, this thing holds tuning really good, I have to say. I like the way they look, although I'm always willing to upgrade maybe to some locking tuners. It's just, I just prefer them. The nut isn't that bad at all for being synthetic bone. Like I said, not exactly sure what they make the synthetic bone nuts out of. I'm probably not the smartest for knowing that, but if you know, let me know in the comments. But yeah, no complaints with the nut or anything like that. The setup that came on this guitar isn't horrible. It's totally playable. Although I probably will try to get the action a little bit lower just for my preference, but honestly it's not that bad on my 7 strings and guitars that I put thick strings on and down tune. I kind of like a little bit of a higher action. I am by no means shredding any guitar, so I don't need my action super close, but on certain guitars it does feel good to have really low action. I think we're around 2 millimeters. I'll probably try to get it to 1.5, 1.6 and see how it is. See how low we can go without getting a lot of buzzing. The frets seemed pretty level. I have checked them off camera. There's a couple little tiny high ones, but nothing too crazy. You could probably just spot level them, but it's nothing that affects it from being unplayable or anything. Finish is great. I don't care for the gloss neck on this guitar. It's pretty sticky, but you can use some wax and maybe smoothen that up a little bit, get it to be a little bit more slipperier. The gloss neck on the PRS we just reviewed was a lot smoother, I have to say, and you can move around on it a lot faster. So why I prefer satin or oiled necks, it's really not horrible. Big complaint is the fact that this thing has no shielding paint in the electronics cavity. I definitely notice if I get too close to my computer, you can definitely hear some interference. I have my noise gate turned way up when I play this thing, so we'll probably throw some shielding paint in there. I definitely probably will update the pickups. I don't mind these at all. They sound pretty dang good for being some soap bar single coils. I have zero experience with these pickups. They do sound good, but I'm interested in maybe upgrading it to the Fishman P90 as long as I have enough room in the cavity for a battery, or maybe like the DiMarzio Super Distortion like I mentioned before, something that just might be a little bit better for high gain. Maybe update the electronics and everything else. I think this is a great mod platform. I'm all about mod platforms. If you haven't noticed by now, I rather buy a cheaper guitar and mod it out and do all the work to make it play great, rather than buy one that's kind of comes with everything that might be a little bit better. I think just the process of modding is super fun and I love doing it. So this is a great mod platform for under $500. And yeah, maybe update this scratch plate, maybe change the color or something. I'm not too crazy about this sunburst stuff like I'd mentioned before. It's not horrible. I really wish they had the seafoam green one, but we'll live with it. Yeah, there's really not a ton of complaints with this guitar. Plays great, feels great, sounds decent. Yeah, I'm probably going to put it on the bench, set it up for me, polish up the frets. The fret ends feel great, so I really don't even have to touch those. Maybe roll the edges of the fretboard a little bit. It's something I always like to do. The nut is in great shape. Not really too familiar with the synthetic bone. It's probably going right over my head, but I'm not too sure. What do they make synthetic bone out of? If you know, let me know in the comments. I'm pretty curious. But maybe do some upgrades, like I said, and then you'd have a great baritone guitar, like I said, for under $500. So that's pretty much it, guys. If you made it this far, I want to thank you for watching. I'm going to keep trying to make videos weekly as much as I can. But as always, thanks for watching. Stay safe, be a good person, go play your guitar, maybe get a baritone, and we'll see you in the next video.